Well, then, okay then, what's going on YouTube? JT Jaborn here, and welcome back to another edition of After the Movie. I'm just at my house right now. I just got done watching Terrifier 2. This movie's gotten a lot of buzz over the past, I don't know, month or two, and I got kind of curious. I heard the hype around it, and so that's certainly one I won't be forgetting anytime soon. This is one of the most over-the-top, violent, gory movies I think I've ever seen. So yeah, this is Damien Leone's Terrifier 2. Art the Clown is back. Now, this was an indie film. It turned out to be a really successful launch. I think the budget was like 250,000, and it made over 10 million. That's a very successful return on investment. So the word of mouth is really strong on this one. It's one people are talking about. So I'm like, okay, I got to check this thing out. I hadn't seen the first one. So then I went back and I actually watched where Art the Clown first appeared, which was in All Hallows Eve. Technically, there were some short films, but those short films are integrated into All Hallows Eve. And then there was Terrifier, and now Terrifier 2. So now I'm all caught up. But anyways, so I guess before I get into Terrifier 2, I'll give quick thoughts on the other two things. So All Hallows Eve was one. It's all independent, very low budget stuff. This one had the biggest budget of them all, obviously. And you watch All Hallows Eve, it's a very low budget made film, but there's also some sort of charm to it. I wasn't really scared by it or anything like that. Art certainly left an impression as a character, as he's the one who kind of carries the segments over. Like he's kind of like the through line between each segments that kind of link everything in that anthology horror film. There still was some interesting stuff. There's some really memorable violence and gore within it, and it's not like anything amazing or anything like that, but it certainly kind of has a little bit of low budget charm to it. Then we had the first Terrifier, which I watched as well. That one had some pretty messed up violent stuff in it. Art the Clown kind of stalks these girls, and he kind of goes off, and it's kind of mostly set in one location. There's some scenes at like a pizza place, and then it's mostly kind of in this abandoned building for the most of it. And there's some interesting stuff that kind of happens within that one. It was pretty violent. Like Art is a very sadistic character, but he's like having so much fun without saying a single word. He's kind of like a mime. He doesn't actually speak, but you can see him emoting, and he's very expressive with his personality and expressions. So a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of something more like a Lon Chaney in a way, where you can convey so much without actually hearing what he has to say. So there's a lot of that within the performance. And so, I mean, the first one was kind of fun, so I watched it. I didn't think it was amazing or anything like that, but I'm like, okay, this is still entertaining. It's still very low budget, but it has a charm to it. And now that brings us to Terrifier 2, where they're like, okay, the other two movies had some gore in it, but this one they're like, no, no, no. We are not holding back at all. I mean, sweet, merciful Jesus. This is the feel-good movie of the year. This movie is so violent and gory, and I even heard where people were like puking and like passing out in the theater with the sheer amount of gore. I didn't get that vibe from it. Like, I've seen some pretty gory stuff before. This is definitely one of the goriest things I've seen. They do not hold back at all. And this is a pretty long movie too. It's like almost like 2.5 hours. It's a very bombastic, like big in terms of violence. Like they go over the top with the gore in this thing. Like the first 3 minutes of the movie, like you see Art the Clown, he's like smashing somebody's face in with like a hammer or mallet or whatever, and then ripping it off and like pulling out some guy's brain and eyes and everything. And then he proceeds to go to a laundromat, and there's some weird kind of really gross stuff in there with some other character who's like Art's almost like apprentice that he kind of sees, but then a few other people can kind of see. It's like this like little girl clown type thing. And there's just some really gross stuff. And then the main focal point is around this girl and her brother, whose father apparently had some knowledge of art, and there's some weird mystical stuff. I don't really understand the rules of the lore in terms of the Terrifier universe. It feels like a lot of it's kind of made up as they go along. And I'm just like, okay, so unlike something like Outro, like, okay, you die in the dream, you die for real. I kind of get what's going on there. Here, it's like I'm just kind of along for the ride and just trying to figure this thing out. And I feel like they're trying to do the same thing, too, with the way it's kind of made and crafted. And then Art's just going around killing people. Then you have the main girl. It's kind of focused on her. Her name's Sienna, and her brother. And her brother is seeing Art. She's seeing Art's having all these weird dreams and visions and stuff. And something with her father is connected there, too. And there's some mystical elements with her in that. I don't understand how this world fully works. I'm just kind of, like I said, along for the ride. And then they're confronted by Art, who goes off and just murders so many people in so many excessively violent ways. I mean, my goodness gracious. There's one scene in particular that I just it was so over the top and it was so unforgiving and relentless. Like Art the Clown is a very, very, very sadistic character. Like he has no mercy and he's having fun every step of the way. Like there's one scene in particular where some girl, I think she gets stabbed, then she gets scalped, then she gets sliced up, then she gets filleted, like literally filleted, and then she gets her arm ripped off. But no, 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 that's not enough for Art the Clown. And then he proceeds to come back with bleach and salt and pour it all over her open wounds. And then he proceeds to go from there to just like rip her face up and just like mutilate her some more. I'm like, it just gets so excessively violent that I'm just sitting there like laughing, like how over the top can this thing get? It kind of reminds me of like old Peter Jackson stuff, like Brain Dead and maybe some Evil Dead bits with how over the top gory it is. So this is kind of more like up my alley with like how I enjoy gore in movies, because it's like if you're gonna do it, like it's very unrealistic, just go over the top crazy and just kind of have fun with it. And that's what they kind of do with this thing. Like I didn't really take it all that you can't really take it all that seriously. It's excessively gory and violent, but it's like I was laughing at some of it because I'm like, this is just so ridiculous. I'm like, oh my goodness, like how much more further can they go? And they just keep going and going. There's some weird stuff like dream sequences too, where Art just all of a sudden pulls out of like a Tommy gun machine gun and starts gunning people down. I don't understand how it all works. Like I said, I'm just along for the ride. And then there's some real over the top moments too, where some guy goes to take a leak and Art just proceeds to stab him and just like rip his wang clear off, and then just like proceeds to like show it in front of somebody. It's like, oh my god, he just keeps going and going, and like nobody is safe from Art the Clown. This is a pure merciless killer. Like kids are not safe, parents aren't safe, nobody is safe from this guy. But there's also some kind of funny moments too, like just with the guy's performance and just how there's some dark humor in it. Like he's so expressive without actually saying a word. But yeah, so I wasn't scared or anything like that in this movie. I just was like just sitting there like, oh my god, this is so ridiculous. But it was still fun and entertaining in its own unique way. I guess I'll get into full spoilers here with how this thing ends. So if you get the chance to, if you're not somebody who's very squeamish, if you like over the top gore like Evil Dead, I think you could like handle watching something like this, because it's not very realistic. It's gory, but it's like entertaining, fun, goofy types of gore. It gets very excessive, so for those who are squeamish, they may not be able to get through it. But for someone like me, I think I handled it just fine. I wanted to see this one in theaters, but I just didn't have like just the way they were screening the movie. I just didn't have the chance to. But I'm glad I watched it in the comfort of my home, because, like I said, this is a long movie, so I had to take a pee break or two. You can just watch it on Amazon, or I think they have like something called Screenbox. But anyways, so the ending of this movie, the girl has like a mystical sword or something like that. She's dressed like some like Viking warrior or whatever. And then she kind of cuts Art's head off, and then that's kind of it for her. Then I think one of the characters from the first movie who's still alive is in a hospital, and then just randomly out of nowhere, Chris Jericho just appears in this movie. And I'm like, Chris Jericho? The hell is he doing in this thing? So yeah, Y2J shows up for like a minute of screen time, and he's just kind of at a hospital, and then this girl gives birth to like Art's decapitated head. I don't understand how it all works, but basically it's like, yes, we're gonna do more Terrifier movies. So that's that. So Terrifier 2, it's certainly a movie I'm not going to forget anytime soon. Whereas the first one, I was like, okay, there's some like real gory stuff. Only one scene in the first one really got to me. That was kind of like the someone who's like split like this and getting hacksawed up through their body like that. I was like, ooh, that's gotta hurt. This one, like I said, the over the top, really excessive, gory scene in the bedroom with the one girl, just like where they just kept going and going and going. It's like, how are you not dead? Just at that point, it's like just end it. Just put me out of my misery at that point. But Art's just like, no. Art just keeps going and going and going. Art is never satisfied with how violent he can be. In terms of a third movie, would I go see it? Yeah, I think so too. I've already sat through the other films. But like I said, if you're into more over-the-top, gory, fun, ridiculous stuff, then Terrifier 2 is, up your alley. But it's definitely not for everyone. If you're squeamish when it comes to gore, you do not want to watch this movie, because they just take it to batshit crazy extremes. I'm just like, oh my god, it just keeps going and going. I will say the movie does drag a bit. It feels a little bit too long at some points, but in a way, it kind of makes it like one of the biggest, like most epic slasher films of all time. And Art is definitely like an iconic horror villain after these three appearances. Like just the design and just the performance of the lead actor in here, not saying a single word, but showcasing so much with his face and body language. I like a lot of that too. So it's like a lot of silent comedy kind of comes with it, but a very sadistic villain, but a sadistic villain who just enjoys every single waking moment of it. So take it for what it's worth. I enjoyed it just fine. I thought it was pretty fun. And I'm looking forward to when they eventually do Terrifier 3. So there you go. Those are my quick thoughts on Terrifier 2. Finally saw the thing. I'm surprised people really were throwing up and puking at this thing, but then again, I've seen violent movies like since I was little, so this doesn't fully phase me. And there's some bits where I'm just like, oh sweet mercy, but it takes a lot to phase me when it comes to some of this stuff. But this one in particular, just like, okay, this is kind of goofy and pretty entertaining. It's certainly a slasher film I won't forget. So take it for what it's worth. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content. I think I'm going to also try and see Wakanda Forever either today or tomorrow, so expect it after the movie on that. I just was like, okay, I woke up and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to watch Terrifier 2. But like Wakanda Forever is supposedly another really long movie, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to just like spend all day just watching this and then that other movie like back to back, so we'll see. But anyways, those are my thoughts. Like I said, post comments down below, like, subscribe, all that other fun stuff. And as always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.